Hey, it's Ben back again with the rankings of how highly cards are getting drafted on the CubeTutor site for the green section. So again, this is a ranking of how high people are drafting cards on CubeTutor's website, and my cube's been drafted a ton of times. I think it's over 10,000 cards drafted at this point. Actually, no, it's at like 18,000 cards drafted, and it's the number 7 most drafted cube on there. So there's been a lot of input that's gone into these rankings, so I feel like it's at the point where I'm able to get a good sample size of what people think and which cards are getting drafted. So here's the top 10 for green. Number 1 is Garrick. The original Garrick, it's really good. Honestly, I'm surprised to see it number 1. Looking at the top 10 here, if I had to pick a card to rank number 1, it would be Sylvan Library. If I was green, that would be the card I would take even over Garrick in the same pack. Just because just being able to filter cards and draw cards in green is so strong. That being said, I don't have a beef with seeing Garrick Wildspeaker at number 1. That's fine. Another surprising card, Primetime, number 2. A lot of people don't even run Primetime in their cubes, which I think is a shame because Primetime is awesome, especially if you cast it off like some mana elves or if you cast it off some artifact mana and then fetch 2 more lands. It's such a strong play. In my cube, I really support the 1-3-5 style of ramp, like the 1-drop mana elf, the 3-drop ramp spell, 5-drop fatty. Even with that, Primetime still plays really well into that. And I think Primetime, I would run it even at 450. I don't know about 360, that'd be close, but it's definitely worth playing. Just being able to fetch out any utility lands and just thinning your deck is so, so good. So next, I'm surprised to see Garrick Relentless this high as well. I mean, Garrick's fine spitting out tokens every turn, but it's just, I don't think it's the best green planeswalker, or even the second best. I would definitely put it behind the other 2 Garricks. But, I mean, it's fine, but I'm surprised to see it this high. I probably wouldn't have it in my top 10. Thragtusk is a card I think is sweet. I think Thragtusk is just, it goes in so many different decks, and it's so easily splashable in the Recurring Nightmare deck, or even Sneak Attack as a lesser target, or Mimic Vat. It's so awesome. So Sylvan Library is a card I would have number 1. I do like Lotus Cobra a lot, so this seems good. I would have Garrick much higher, and I would have Thrun a little higher. And then to see the 2 best 1-drop fixers at 9 and 10, if I was doing the top 10, I would probably rank Sylvan Library 1, and it's really close from that point. I guess I probably would have Wildspeaker 2nd, and then Primal Hunter 3rd, and then maybe Primetime. No, Primetime, this is too high. Then Lotus Cobra, and then Thrun or the 1-drops, just depending how I was feeling. But Primetime's a good card, but I guess it just shows how popular it's been. And that's something you have to take into consideration when you're designing your cube, is what cards are going to be popular. I want to cut Prime Speaker just because it's good, but it's not absolutely necessary for blue-green, but I think there'd be an open revolt if I did that. Not that you should always listen to your playgroup if they want to play bad cards, but I think Prime Speaker is a good card, so I'm willing to keep it in to keep my playgroup happy. So next 10, Tree Speaker is a card that I would have. Man, it's close. These are all really good cards, and it just depends what your deck needs, but Tree Speaker in a true ramp deck is the best one of those. So what else is here? How about Eternal Witness at 16 is sweet. Survival. Survival is a great card. I think this is a little low. I don't think it's terribly low, but I think it's a little on the low side. How about Silverheart at 13? They spoiled a new 5-drop Hydra, which in a lot of ways is very similar to Wolfir Silverheart. So I'm going to be curious to see against each other how they're going to end up playing. I'm surprised to see Acidic Slime so high, just because, it's a great card and can destroy pretty much any non-land permanent outside of the walkers, but I'm just surprised to see it at number 20. Oracle is another card we just added recently, and that's been real popular so far, so I've been very happy with its inclusion. How about the 5-drops on this? Just seeing Slime, seeing Deranged Hermit, Silverheart back to the top 10. Oh, I ruined everything. Back to the top 10, seeing Garrick as well, and Thragtusk. Wow. So when trying to make space for this new Hydra, there's 5 of the 20 most drafted cards in green is in the 5-drop slot. Wow. So that just shows you how tough of a section it is to crack into. Next 10, Vorpede, another 5-drop, seeing that there. Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, only 2 spots apart. That's good. Wow. Everyone who's drafting my deck or drafting my cube online likes Life from the Loam way more than my cube circle does. It's not a very popular card in our circle, but I feel like it's a good card. People just don't appreciate it, or it doesn't go in the right drafts or whatever. So that's neat to see it this high. So this is kind of the 1-3-5 strategy I do with my cube, seeing the 1 here, like the Land of War Elves. Here are the 3s: the Cultivate, Kadama's Reach, and Harrow, and to a lesser extent Yavimaya Elder. Rofellos is awesome. I guess it's this low just because it's such a heavy green card. You can't be 50-50 in green and another color and have Rofellos truly shine. Another 5-drop, Genesis. We're still in the top half, and I've gone through almost all the 5-drops that are in the cube. Holy cow. Natural Order is a fun card. Plow Under, still, I don't know, a lot of people love Plow Under. It's a card that doesn't get much respect in my circle. Hoof has been great. I've seen it steal multiple games out of nowhere. If you're not, I don't know where I would rank it in the fatty pantheon for green cards, but if you're running at least 450, you should definitely test it because it's been a lot of fun. Not just fun, but it's been really good and just grab games out of nowhere, giving the creatures haste and just making them huge and giving them trample. It's so good. Gaia's Cradle was a card I resisted for the longest time just because it seemed so bad. Nothing like looking at your opener, seeing Gaia's Cradle, colorless land, and green creatures, and just being sad. But it's done some real work, especially in conjunction with elves, the mana elves, especially in conjunction with token makers. It's been sweet. It's not great. I don't think it's as good as number 39 ranking. I think it's more closer to the bottom. But I do think at a 540 cube, which is what I'm running, it's worth including. So, Scavenging Ooze, wow. That green aggro is terribly underdrafted, as we're going to see when we get to the last 20 cards on my list. And seeing Rancor, which is a bonkers card in the bottom half, is an indictment on that as well. And nobody else run Growth Spasm, but here it is sitting at 45. So I don't think any other cubes that I've seen run Growth Spasm, but I really like the 1-3-5, giving the 3-drop ramp section another card. Obviously not as good as the Cultivates or even not as good as the Harrow because it only fixes one color, but at least it does give you a creature to chump block with, and I've seen it be relevant. I've seen it carry swords before. So if you're looking for another ramp spell, I would definitely recommend Growth Spasm. Farseek's been good as well. Now we're getting into the aggro cards. And here's Fauna Shaman. Survival on a Stick is pretty low at 51. Worldly Tutor, I put this in place of Primal Command, and I've been very happy with the change, just if nothing else, just for cost. Just being able to put, a cheap critter on top. Not usually an aggro creature, but maybe like a mana bird if you need to get some mana going, or get you an extra fatty for 1 mana. It's been quite good. Wow, Treetop Village, it's low for that. Regrowth's really low too. I actually have considered cutting Regrowth before, which probably seems like sacrilege, especially since I came from the revised days, but people just don't play it that much, and this is a good indicator of that. So, this is the bottom of the list. Last 10. Fast Bond, I think the next card I should probably cut, honestly, should be this Gazban Ogre. It's a 2/2 for 1, but if you have less life, the player with less life has to give it up, essentially. So if you play it, and then your opponent like Bulch End a turn or does any damage to you, then you have to give up the creature, which is just a total blowout. That being said, it's still a 2/2 for 1, and I think in a true aggro deck, it's still worth playing. Obviously not as good as all these other 1-drops listed right here, but I've considered many times just totally cutting green aggro from my cube, just because it doesn't get drafted very often. But just the other night I saw this awesome green-white aggro deck that just looks so good. It had, because green-white aggro is tough, but it also had like your journeys, it had your swords to get rid of the big creatures. It had the removal, which is what the green-white deck really needs. And had like Wild Nacatl, had Loam Lion, and it was just all these underdrafted cards were all there, and it did some real work, and it was great. So when I see decks like that, it gives me hope. One card that, again, on this list, if I were to cut one card today, if you're like, you have to cut one card from your green section, it's Fast Bond. Too often, it is the 25th or 26th playable, and when you normally play 22 to 24. It usually just misses the cut. Even in the ramp decks, it just doesn't seem to do work. And even like I had an upheaval deck and I had fast spawn, and it just, yeah, that interaction was insane, but it just didn't make sense. Just there was no other interactions with it in the whole deck. It was just, yeah. So Bramble Crush is another card. Everyone was excited when it got printed because we were able to cut Creeping Mold, but it's, in my circle at least, it just doesn't get drafted very much. I feel like this ranking is pretty accurate about where I would rank it. So in summary, I think the green aggro cards are underdrafted. Fauna Shaman's definitely underrated, with Treetop Village as well. Cards here like Natural Order has been awesome. Gaia's Cradle, probably a little overdrafted there also. Rofellos a little underdrafted, but I feel like that's mostly because of the heavy color commitment. Life from the Loan, that does not get drafted nearly this high in my circle. Next 10, and man, breaking into this green 5-drop section is going to be real tough. Acidic Slime seems a little high to me. Green Sun Zenith seems about right on par. Jiraga Tree Speaker probably is a little low as well, just because it enables the most broken draws that green can get is with Tree Speaker. And 1A, 1B is Sylvan Library, Garruk Wildspeaker. And I do like Thrun a lot, just against the decks that just can't deal with it. And Garruk Primal Hunter is my favorite of the 3 Garruks. So that's a summary of my green section. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with articles